Hello, fellow Robo Capitals. Hope you're well. So we have huge news out from the Wall Street Journal saying they have identified not only the people that blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, but they've revealed or they've discovered the entire plot from start to finish. And when I go over this with you, if you haven't read this already, it just came out this morning, and they said it was an exclusive report for the Wall Street Journal. You are going, I trust me on this one. You got to be sitting down because it is properly stiff drink time, not because of what the Wall Street reveals about the so-called plot or their theory or their hypothesis, but how completely absurd it is. And the absurdity tells you everything you need to know about what's really happening behind the scenes. I'll show you exactly what I'm referring to. Let's get over to the Wall Street Journal. Now, prepare for this, guys. If you haven't read this article or seen these headlines, you got to be sitting down for this one. And remember, the Nord Stream pipeline, the main pipeline that supplied gas from Russia to countries like Germany, a vital piece of infrastructure that would have been heavily guarded against these types of attacks. And remember, when this happened, who did the mainstream media blame? Well, it was Russia, of course. It had to be Russia, because no other entity would have had the resources, the technology required to actually pull off an act of sabotage at this level. Remember, that was the narrative that they were telling you. And if you said, wow, what? I don't know. Why would Russia blow up their own pipeline? Seems more like the United States or Ukraine. How dare you, you far-right, alt-right extremist, you racist, you homophobe, you deplorable. You're spreading misinformation and disinformation. Remember? Well, let's not forget that that's how people with just common sense were treated back then. All right. Now let's get over to the Wall Street Journal article. Here we go. Drum roll, please. It was not Russia. In fact, it was just some drunk dudes who just rented a boat and decided to go blow up that Nord Stream pipeline. Woohoo! I mean, I read this article, or just the title, this morning, and I almost fell out of my chair. First of all, I was like, I thought I was reading some sort of joke. Like, I thought I was being punked. Or I thought it was like an April Fool's Day joke from the Wall Street Journal. And I had to read, what? What am I missing here? No, they can't be saying this. And then once I realized this is what they were saying, I just started laughing. You really expect me to believe this? Like, just for the parents that are watching right now, put the earmuffs on the kids for a moment, because I'm going to be very explicit. I'm going to tell you exactly what came to my mind. Are you fucking kidding me right now? Are you fucking kidding me? How fucking stupid do you really think I am? And I think I was speaking for most of American society when they read this. Like, come on. But let's get into it. So to be fair, they're not saying that some dude just got drunk and then just went out and did this. They're saying that the plan was, let me get into it. It's like exhausting trying to just keep up with their propaganda. It was the kind of outlandish scheme that might bubble up around a bar around closing time. Well, according to the Wall Street Journal, that's exactly what happened. Ukrainian military officers and business dudes, just like some guys like Kenny McElroy and Robert Kiyosaki, just throwing down a couple shots of tequila. I'm like, hey, got a great idea. Those Ruskies are pissing me off. Let's just put our James Bond, Jason Bourne hat on, and let's try to blow a pipeline. Those are some pretty hardcore business dudes. Like, I know business people and entrepreneurs that are all about problem solving, but this takes it to a slightly unbelievable level. Getting back to this. These just random business dudes and a couple military guys had gathered to toast their country's remarkable success in halting the Russian invasion. If they're having that much success, then why did they want to take it to the next step and try to pull off something that was quite literally impossible, given the resources they had? Buoyed by alcohol and patriotic fervor, somebody suggested a radical next step. Let's just destroy the Nord Stream pipeline. I say, what better way to make Vladimir Putin pay for his aggression? Well, how did that work out for you? Assuming that that's what happened, which I highly, highly doubt. I mean, look, we're going to go through this, and I'm going to give you my opinion. That's all it is an opinion, and it's free, so take it for what it's worth. But look, to me, this is just the United States, calling Germany and saying, hey, these journalists, like that Seymour Hersh guy, he's getting a little too close to reality here. He's getting a little too close to the truth. We need to throw him off the scent here. We need to create some sort of plausible story on how this played out so it doesn't come back on us or whoever did this, right? Whether it was the United States, CIA, whoever, I don't know. Just pick the entity. They're like, no, this is not coming back on us. We need to just have a fall guy, basically. We need to have a scapegoat that is plausible. And therefore, here you go, Wall Street Journal, Germany, go ahead and back up the story. And then let's just move on to doing taking care of other problems, and let's just say projects that we don't want the mainstream or the society at large to know about. So getting back to the article here, one officer was involved with the plot, and they don't give any names, of course, except for the one guy that's taking the fall for Zelensky. Because remember, you got to come up with something that doesn't make Zelensky look like a bad guy, or else that makes Biden, and that makes all these other politicians in the EU look like complete idiots. Right? Because if this was, you say, well, George, why? Because Zelensky was doing this to fend off Russia. No. But what they also say, and what was being said at the beginning, remember when they were blaming this on Russia, is that this was a climate disaster. This was catastrophic to the climate because of all the CO2 gases that were released. So we can't have that go back on Zelensky. Because if it goes back on Zelensky, like I was saying, it goes back on Biden, and it goes back on the World Economic Forum, the EU, Ursula, and all these other central planners, authoritarians. So they say the whole thing was just born out of a night of heavy boozing and the iron determination of a handful of people who had the guts to risk their lives for their country in vain, and also jeopardize World War III, getting NATO involved. And also, if you want to believe the mainstream media, around the climate change thing, created one of the biggest climate disasters in human history. Ukrainian President Zelensky initially approved the plan, according to one officer who participated and 3 people familiar with it. But later, the CIA learned of it and asked the Ukrainian president to pull the plug. Of course we did. Of course. Because the CIA would never, ever, ever do anything that was unethical. Or, I mean, they wouldn't cross that line. Heavens no. They're the good guys. They're the ones they're the adults in the room, right? I mean, that sentence in and of itself should make you doubt the entire story. That it's just the CIA learned that Zelensky was going to blow up the pipeline, and they just said, whoa, 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 dude, no, that's just taking it a step too far. Really? What happened to all the Ukrainian flags? Like, I thought we were like support Ukraine. Like, I stand for Ukraine. Just we need to do whatever it takes because Vladimir Putin's a psychopath that's going to try to take over the world and create World War III. What happened to that? So if that was true, then why wouldn't the CIA be all for this, if not institute it themselves? So now they get to the fall guy here, the guy who's taking the heat, because it can't be Zelensky. No, because he's as pure as the driven snow, and he would never do anything that would cause a climate crisis. Absolutely not. He'd never do anything like sabotage. That's just what those dirty, filthy Ruskies do under Putin's control. And the Trump supporters as well. Got to throw them in there. But this, they're blaming it all on Zelensky's commander-in-chief. No way I can pronounce his name. Valery, we'll call him, who was leading the effort, nonetheless forged ahead. So Zelensky said, no, this is a bad idea. This is against the rules. I'm ethically and morally opposed to this. He said, screw you, Zelensky. I'm going rogue, and I'm taking it under my control. I'm going to be the bad guy. Right. I don't care what those good guys at the CIA tell you to do. Portions of their account corroborated by nearly 2-year German police investigation in the attack, which has obtained evidence including email, mobile, satellite phone communication. Look, I thought it was just a couple drunk dudes. So if it's a couple drunk guys going back and forth, what are we doing here? Why do we need all of this sophisticated back and forth? Just grab some of their emails saying, hey, we're going to blow this up. I mean, do you need anything other than that? Especially when you combine it with supposed DNA samples of the alleged sabotage team. And by the way, are they going to present this to the public? I'd be surprised. Because, the public's going to go through that with a fine-tooth comb. And if they find any inaccuracies in the story, which we're going to get to in just a moment, then all of a sudden they have egg on their face. They got a lot of explaining to do. So my guess is they're going to want to take all this evidence they have and just bury it right under the rug and say, oh, you don't need to see that. It's top secret. A senior official in the main, and see, what you'll notice is they keep going back to Zelensky had nothing to do with this. They mentioned that. I mean, this article is really long. You guys should check it out if you have time. But just in me scanning it, they mentioned this probably 5 or 6 times, just over and over and over again. Well, this was Ukrainians, but Zelensky didn't have anything to do with it. Nope. He wanted to, but he's such a good guy that he is just so morally upright that he, after thinking about it for a few minutes, he decided that this was just the wrong thing to do because he didn't want to stoop down to their level. That's what you just hear over and over and over again. So here you go. A senior official of the main Ukrainian intelligence service, SBU, denied his government had anything to do with the sabotage and said that Zelensky, in particular, did not approve. Why would he say in particular? But none of us wanted it, but especially Zelensky. I mean, you might as well just put Biden in there as a proxy for Zelensky, because that's what they're really trying to say. Is that, well, this doesn't go back to the Biden administration. It doesn't go back to Ursula, and Ursula is the head of the EU. Ursula von der Leyen, or whatever her name is. I always just call her Ursula. But it's just these typical global elite types. all the ones with the Ukrainian flag and all the people that when Zelensky comes into Washington, D.C., they're all standing up and giving him a applause and standing ovation. Oh my gosh. And then they're just, oh, Zelensky. And remember when Zelensky came out like on Vanity Fair and all these things, they're just making him out to be this larger than life hero, like he's straight out of an action movie. And yeah, so we can't have him do something that turned out to be the biggest climate disaster in history. Because then the government and all the sheeple, well, the politicians, what I'm referring to, just the little seals, the trained seals of Zelensky, because then they're guilty by association. So now they get into more details, which you really start to kind of scratch your head and say, Within days, Zelensky approved the plan. According to the 4 people familiar with the plot, all arrangements were made verbally, leaving no paper trail. Really? Because I thought you just said that the German government did an investigation and they found all of these paper trails. What happened to the emails and the cell phone connections and the satellite surveillance and blah, 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 that proved that what the Wall Street Journal is saying is 100% correct? Weird. Did they make arrangements verbally and then just somehow decide that wasn't a good idea anymore? I'm confused. I'm really confused here. The CIA warned Zelensky office to stop. U.S. officials said the Ukrainian president then ordered the bad guy, the guy who went rogue, according to Ukrainian officers and officials familiar with the conversation, as well as Western intelligence officials, but generally ignored the order, and his team modified their original plan. Yes, of course, once again, we highlight Zelensky is the good guy. They probably had to blame it on someone in Ukraine, because blaming it on anyone else, they'd be like, "Oh, well, no, I did not do this. What are you talking about?" But the Ukrainian guy's like, "Yeah, I'll go along with it as long as the United States government continues to send us billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. And what's the blowback on me? Nothing. So sure, I'll take the heat. Why not?" In September 2022, the plotters rented a 50-foot leisure yacht called Andromeda in Germany's Baltic port town of Rostock. The boat was leased with the help of a Polish travel agency. One crew member, a military officer on active duty, was fighting the war, was a seasoned skipper, 4 experienced deep-sea diver. People familiar with German investigation said, look, the crew had civilians, one of whom was a gal in her 30s that was just there as kind of a decoy. And we'll talk about that more in just a moment. So here is just this incredible operation, and just that was somehow pulled off with very, very limited resources, which is odd. Well, one of the many things that really don't pass the sniff test, according to what the mainstream media themselves said back when the Nord Stream pipeline was blown up to begin with. More on that in just a moment. But armed with only diving equipment, satellite navigation, and portable sonar, and open source maps of the seabed charting the position of the pipelines, the crew set out. Operating in pitch dark, icy waters, they handled a powerful explosive known as HMX that was wired to timer-controlled detonators. So, okay, again, let's make sure we got maybe 4 or 5 guys diving down like 250 feet. They had just basic diving equipment, satellite navigation, you probably have on your phone or something, and just a rented boat. And they went down, placed those explosives in the perfect spot. And according to them, I'm reading right off the page, a small amount, write this down, guys, or make a mental note. A small amount of light explosives, a small amount of light explosives would be sufficient to rip open the high pressure pipes. Okay. And where is the other part that I highlighted? This stupid highlighting tool. Well, I can try to find it really quick, because now what we're going to do is we're going to go over an article from the Guardian that came out right around the time when this happened. So this was October of 2022. I can tell you right off the top of my head, the part that I had highlighted, which is now not highlighted, they talked about the crew, which was a crew of maybe one military guy, mostly civilians that had been trained on just kind of civilian diving protocol. And then this one gal that was just there is kind of like a decoy just to throw people off the scent. That's basically the crew that actually carried out the mission using nothing but, some basic satellite navigation and some lightweight explosives. Okay, this is what they're trying to get you to believe. Now, let's go over to The Guardian. And this is an article that came out at the time when the Nord Stream pipeline blew up. Now, let's juxtapose this to what the Wall Street Journal is saying, and I'll let you decide if what the Wall Street Journal is saying makes sense. And I'll let you decide why they're coming out with this article. Is it just propaganda to throw you off the scent? Is it real? You be the judge. Here we go. Denmark and Sweden have said leaks from the Nord Stream pipelines in the Baltic Sea were caused by blasts equivalent to the power of several hundred kilos of explosives. Several hundred kilos. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with kilos, that's about 2.2 pounds. So several hundred. Let's just say 400. We're dealing with 1,000 pounds, roughly. 1,000 pounds. And you're going to tell me 4 or 5 divers with the help of a military guy that only had training in just civilian diving were able to do this with just a little satellite system? Oh, but wait, there's more. The conclusions were made in a joint report by Denmark and Sweden, which was delivered to United Nations. The UN Environment Program said on Friday the ruptures are likely to have led to the biggest single release of climate-damaging methane ever recorded. Now you know why this can't go back on, or one of the many reasons why this can't go back on Zelensky. Even if that wasn't true, the mainstream media was saying that it was true, and then all the politicians were piling on and saying it, so they can't go back on what they said a year and a half ago or whenever. Intelligence sources quoted in the news magazine Spiegel believe the pipelines were hit in 4 places by explosives using 500 kilograms of TNT. So 500 kilo, we're talking about 1,200 pounds. 1,200 pounds. Have you ever tried lifting 1,200 pounds? Yeah, and you got, let's just say 4 diver guys. Civilians. Let's just say 5 with 1 military guy, even though the article said that the divers were specifically civilian. But let's just say you've got 1 military guy kind of arranging things. You show me how 4 normal people and 1 military guy can handle 1,200 pounds. That is an immense amount. And then spread it over 4 different places, diving in frigid cold waters with massive tides, huge waves, pitch dark. You know how dark it is at 300 feet below the sea level when you're in the middle of the Arctic Ocean or wherever the hell they are up in the northern Baltic Sea? I mean, it's not like you're swimming in the Caribbean, for heaven's sakes. You can't see a foot in front of your face. But wait, there's more. So this 500 kilos of TNT, the equivalent to the explosive power of a heavy aircraft bomb. Wait a minute here. What happened to this little bit of lightweight explosives? Doesn't seem too lightweight to me. In fact, German investigators have undertaken seismic readings. So it registered on the Richter scale. But yet, according to the Wall Street Journal, they're trying to convince you that it was just like a drunk hazing mission from some sort of college frat house, just using some firecrackers. Oh, man. It remains a mystery as to how the explosives reached the pipeline. This is where it gets good. According to the initial reports, the explosions happened at depths between 70 and 90 meters. There has been speculation that mini submarines. Now, back in that Wall Street Journal article, if you remember, they said they had about a $300,000 budget. I don't know if I read that. I had it highlighted. I might have skipped over it. But they said they spent about $300,000. So last time I checked, mini submarines, especially multiple submarines, were slightly more expensive than $300,000. And I don't know if you could have gotten those mini submarines out on effectively a sailboat that you rented. But maybe they didn't use the submarines. Why on earth is the Guardian saying they did? Well, let's read on. Speculation that mini submarines might have been used to deliver the explosives. Why? Well, because you're dealing with 1,200 pounds of TNT. That's why. In other words, human beings without the help of robots or submarines can't do this. It's impossible. However, the amount of explosives that would have been necessary to cause such large blasts make this theory increasingly unlikely. So what they're saying is that because the amount of explosives necessary was so great that it would have been beyond the capacity of submarines. So if it's beyond the capacity of submarines, how did 4 or 5 civilians with a military guy go ahead and do it? Answer me this. Instead, experts are suggesting that maintenance robots operating within the pipeline structure may have planted the bombs during repair work. So it goes from just a couple drunk dudes coming up with this plan and then implementing it with not that much training, just kind of, some explosives that they just bought at Home Depot, to a plan that is so sophisticated that it would have required basically hacking into robots that there specifically in order to just do normal maintenance or clean, and somehow, I don't know how you would do this, but somehow arm them with the explosives necessary. I mean, this isn't even a James Bond plot. I mean, this takes it to a whole new level. This is straight out of an action movie sci-fi flick. Here we go. If this theory proves to be right, the sophisticated nature of the attacks, as well as the power of the blast, would add weight to the suspicion that the attacks were carried out by a state power, not some business dudes that were pissed off at Putin and some retired military guys on a $300,000 budget. And some, and some, what do they call them? Light explosives. Yeah, right. And then they say, and this points the finger directly at Russia. They're the only ones with this level of sophistication. They're the only ones that had access to their own robots. They had to do it because it could not have been anyone else. And then they go on to say it's the emissions. They go on to say the emissions released with the output size of Paris or a country like Denmark, I guess, for the entire year or something like that. And then I think this is the irony of all ironies right here. The Guardian is asking you to donate to them and saying bad actors spreading disinformation online to fuel intolerance. I don't know. Disinformation, like this points the finger directly at Russia? Is that the type of disinformation that you're talking about? Pointing that finger right at Russia? I don't know. Someone's spreading disinformation. It's either the Guardian or the Wall Street Journal, or both, more likely. So what's really going on here? I mean, let's go over to my tweets. I tweeted about this morning just because it was so egregious. I mean, how can you not address this? And or maybe I didn't tweet about it. I could have sworn. Oh, here we go. Yeah. This is what I think it's all about. I think this summarizes it well. At this point, the global elite are just playing a game of let's see how ridiculous a story we can get people to believe. So, I mean, this is honestly like my base case. That the global elite are just sitting around and they're so intoxicated off their own power and wealth that they have nothing else better to do than be like, you know what? Let's play a game. I'll bet you, in fact, I will bet you $1 that I can get the American public to believe the Nord Stream pipeline was blown up by 4 dudes renting a boat using some chemicals they bought at Home Depot. Oh, Klaus, you're a real card. I tell you what, you got quite an imagination. There is absolutely, I mean, these people are stupid. Let's be honest. I mean, we all agree that we need to kill at least 4 billion of these mouth breathers out there that are just stealing and using all of the resources that only we, the elite, should have access to. I mean, we all agree on that. I mean, of course. I mean, we need to kill these people, but let's be clear. I mean, they're not that gullible, for heaven's sakes. They're stupid, but nobody is that stupid. Oh, yes, I'll bet you $1. In fact, oh, wait, I'll raise the stakes. I will bet you a trip to Epstein Island. Well, whoa, time out now, Klaus. Okay, you're really raising the stakes. We're talking about, you know, we're we're talking about a trip that, whew, boy, Epstein Island. I mean, who can refuse a bet like that? I mean, I haven't been to Epstein Island in at least like 2 or 3 weeks. You're on, buddy. You're on. And then Klaus goes to work just planning, you know, the seed and, oh, how I can do this. And, oh, let's get the CIA, my buddies over at the CIA and the Wall Street Journal to pick up on this, blah, 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 blah. And then this comes out and you can see him just kicking back, you know, kneeling down, praying to some like goat skull that they have up on the wall, you know, drinking lamb's blood or whatever they do at these get-togethers and just laughing hysterically. Oh, did you see that? Man, back in 2020, we got all these people to inject this foreign substance into their veins, and we almost got them to do it to their kids. And now we can convince them that the Nord Stream pipeline was blown up by some drunk dudes. When before we told them the only entity that could possibly do it was Russia. I mean, I hate to say it. I have no proof of that, but just using common sense, I think that's what's going on. I think this is just a ruse that the global elite are playing, just trying to see how far they can push the envelope. And just trying to see what level of absurdity they can get the mainstream media to parrot, as well as just the normies out there to actually buy into. That's I hate to even go there, but I don't know what else this could be. I really don't know what else this could possibly be, other than the CIA or whoever, you know, let's say the United States CIA or whatever entity really did this, is just trying to really plant a story in order to take the scent off their trail. They're trying to cover this up. Let's say the few journalists that we have out there are getting a little bit close to the truth, and they're trying to throw them off. That's probably a more realistic. That's probably a more realistic scenario than Klaus and his buddies betting a trip to Epstein Island. Although the other is also quite probable. So I will let you guys be the judge. You decide what's really happening. Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments below. If you can't laugh at this stuff, you can either laugh or cry at the end of the day. And I just choose to try to pay attention. I'm not going to bury my head in the sand, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it. And at the end of the day, you got to laugh at this stuff and just be aware of what is happening in the world around you and how you're trying to be manipulated. That's the bottom line. Whether it's Klaus and his goat blood drinking cronies, or just the CIA or the central planners, the authoritarians, the bottom line is they are trying to manipulate you every single day, every single hour, every single minute. And you've got to be on your guard to make sure that you're not falling victim to this type of propaganda. All right, guys, as always, make sure that you're standing up for freedom, liberty, free market capitalism. See you in the next video.